My name is Jeff Williams, and this is why we should destigmatize trap rap. My favorite, music in general, you can feel. And aside from the melodies and the bass, because I think that trap rap has some of the best drum and instrumentation, but it is the purpose behind and the messaging behind the lyrics. It's just the one genre where I feel like two things come together and tell a story that can motivate you in various ways. So that's why I love it personally. Well, number one, I was proud of Lil Baby for the bigger picture. I look at trap rap on a spectrum, and it really speaks to the duality of growing up Black, particularly in the hood or the trap. And we get so much, or folks in rap in general, and trap in particular, they get so much criticism because of the idea that they're glorifying the negative aspects, whether it be the rap, the killing, the drug dealing, and all of that. And I think Lil Baby, when you think about it, he is more along the lines of that spectrum, at least with respect to the pictures that he painted. But I feel like the bigger picture was a song that allowed what's bubbling underneath the surface to come together. And it was him recognizing his responsibility and the overall responsibility of trap rap, which is really telling the story of folks that grew up in the trap. That feels helpless, feels hopeless. But rap in general has been an outlet for many to get up out of the trap. And this was Baby really having an opportunity to show his growth personally and rise to the occasion about the purpose. And what do we do when we get up out of the trap? What do we do when we have the resources and we leverage this vehicle rap? And he's grassroots, so he's been able to tap into people that haven't before, and they hear him rapping like that. You know what I mean? It was he's like, yeah, I rap about trapping and killing, about telling these to vote. And it was that line in general really speaks to him recognizing his responsibility and the overall theme of trap music, which is we're in the trap. This is the story of us. This is the story of what it takes to navigate and get up out of it. And when I think about how it's evolved over time, trap music in general has evolved over time. I think it was really just, it was storytelling. I feel like it's just segmented, right? And think about the aspects of trap in general, whether it be, the drug dealing, whether it be growing up poor, not having nothing, the opportunities that exist, the narrow amount of opportunities that exist, the trapping, the killing, the different circumstances, the single parent story, all these things come together to tell the story of the trap. And then you got the other side of trap, which is not painting a picture on that, but it's really painting a picture of what does it look like to actually get out of it. So that's when you start talking about the cars, the jewelry, what Pimp C was talking about when he was the gold, this is why we shine is because we made it. It was kings, right? We was kings before, we wearing this now because we want to, really bring us back and make everybody around us remember that. That's why we shine. There's a purpose behind the stunt, and I think it exists on the spectrum. But early on, with Outkast and Goody Mob, it was really just eloquently talking about the circumstances. And then, T.I. and Jeezy and everybody came in, and they was not glorifying, but really painting a picture of what it means to be a trap nigga. And then that took off. And then you get the glamour, the glitz and glamour of trap music as well. And then the perils of success because you're dealing with the trauma from how you came up with it. So there's these different aspects of trap music, and as the genre has evolved, everything becomes segmented. Then there are people who can, paint the picture overall. But then on the other side of how it's evolved, it's the way in which society interacts with trap music. It used to have this negative stigma. There's still certain stigmas attached to it, but it's the number one. It is the number one sub-segment of rap, which is the number one genre consumed. So now it's everywhere. You can't get around without hearing the 808s the melodies and the content. So, I mean, it's number one, and it's evolved to be, pop culture too. Because today in America, look at unemployment rates, look at education, look at society in general. Black people are still living in the trap. And I think so long as Black people are living in the trap, there are gonna be aspects of people who need to tell the story. And artists like Lil Baby, right, which is easy essentially to discuss, Dirt, and various folks across rap, like who speak to trap music, T.I. in the past. They are here to show and cast a light on what's happening, whether that's good or bad. Some people will say it's glorifying, but anything that you feel connected to, it may look like glorifying. It's like, damn, like he's speaking to how I live. So they don't live by that, but they can connect to it. So it's not a celebration of it. It's this is how I feel. This is the way in which I connect with it. So I'm excited that somebody sees me. And I think that when you look at, trap music in general, that's really what it's about. It's like casting a light on it. And then also in many cases being a blueprint for how you get out of it, or use rap and your gifts or whatever to get you out. And then, full circle, it's about how we pull out of it. But as long as Black people in particular are still living in the trap and systemic racism exists, there's gonna be a need for trap music. People telling the story of triumph and disaster. Hell yeah, because society has deemed us less than from jump. So our gauge of like what is valuable is not going to be predicated by people who essentially have put us into, these circumstances. So it's going to have a positive impact so long as we continue to tell the stories and it paints a light on the circumstances that we live in, and it causes it and it draws attention to it to help people be in places to solve those problems, even outside of those rappers who accumulate enough wealth to solve the problems. This is a societal problem, and it's important that the people who are either responsible for it or those that fall victim to it are playing a role with respect to coming to terms with the solution. So they're not going to be there, and when we reach that, which we have in various ways, whether it be rappers donating back to their communities, in various ways, whether it be inspiring the youth to go into tech or to be entrepreneurs, to even get bread legally and give back social impact causes, then certainly is going to have a positive impact. It has had a positive impact, and it will continue. On the other end, it's motivational music. I love trap music for the simple fact that the themes and like what they're saying, even if you take the rap, like the drugs and everything away, it's talking about getting money, it's talking about getting success, and like being dedicated to something that's greater than yourself, and having a purpose or a vision, and dedicate yourself to it on a regular basis. So that alone is a positive impact, because you hear whether it be Jay Billis, the ESPN and Duke, who wakes up every morning and writes and tweets Jeezy lyrics to like the average corporate professional or a nonprofit organizer who, when they wake up, like to get them out of bed, they listen to trap music. Like that alone is a positive impact, because for many people, it's the soundtrack to keep them going. The trap in general is a traumatic experience. Being Black in America is a traumatic experience. So when you talk about its relationship with mental health, it casts a light on mental health, like the trauma that we go through within our community in general. And I think that is the relationship versus, someone saying like, oh, like, think about the drug use, right? Like they're consumers of, then there are people who are affected by people that consume. Trap talks about that. But then on the other end, it talks about the people who have had to leverage that means of getting money And that comes with murder, that comes with selling to like family members, that comes with killing people within your community or the negative implications behind it. And then there's this element of survivor's remorse, guilt, shame, and depression that weighs on you as you climb up out of the trap. So I think in general, especially the most poetic ones, really have an opportunity and do talk about mental health in general through rap. So the relationship is really tied to the lyrics and the story that they make. We're in a digital economy. I don't think that they need protection anymore because I feel like now the vote, it's a public vote. And the public has already spoken. It's the number one consumer genre. Hip hop, the trap rappers are the number one, are the new rock stars. It's already done. So when you talk about protection, it is continuing to shed a light on the positive things that they do. Having known that, I mean, at the end of the day, public opinion from, the consumers are on their side. So how do we continue to elevate them and put us in a position where we can continue to solve the social problems that have, come with the stories that they tell. And I think that they'll be just fine. Like if this was 2005 or 2003, it's a different conversation. Now you can't stop this wheel. I think that's the blend of technology and its ability to make trap universal and, to the world to see like that this is beautiful. Like telling the stories of Black folk in general, the way in which we like overcome like narrow circumstances. I mean, it's as American as apple pie and baseball. We're a multifaceted people, and I think what it's going to take for us to continue to escape, but because we are, but like how do we get it done in droves? How do we actually solve the problems that the trap presents? It's cross-functional collaboration. It's almost like treating it like a corporate business in that you got marketers, you got, journalists, you got rappers, you got people who have different skills across the board. And we have to come to terms with the fact that even if we don't understand what they do for a living, that there is an importance or a value add that they have. So collaboration, we talk a lot about cooperative economics, but I think it's also about community and intergenerational collaboration between various generations coming together. So I think that's how we do it. It's by coming together and using our unique skills and individuality for a common goal. And we do it in pockets and we see success. So it's to continue to replicate that and not allow the idea of trap and the trap and systemic racism to pit ourselves against each other and, fight over limited resources, but instead use our creativity, our powers to create an abundant lifestyle that all of us can participate in, particularly when we work together.